There's a house in California that has more doors than logic, more staircases than any sane architect would dare to build, and corridors that seem to lead to nowhere. Locals call it the Winchester Mystery House, a sprawling mansion built on fear, grief, and perhaps a curse. Our story begins in the late 1800s with Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester repeating arms fortune. When her husband died suddenly from tuberculosis, Sarah's world shattered. Within a short span, her infant daughter, Annie, also died of a mysterious illness. Heartbroken, Sarah turned to spiritualists for answers, desperate to understand the string of tragedies haunting her life. One particular medium told her something chilling, that her family was cursed by the spirits of all those who had been killed by Winchester rifles. The message was clear. As long as she lived, she would be haunted by the dead, unless she built a house to confuse and contain these restless spirits. So, in 1884, Sarah bought an unfinished farmhouse in San Jose, California, and began building. Day and night, construction never stopped. Carpenters worked in shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year. There were no blueprints, no master plan, only Sarah's whispered instructions to the builders. Every morning, she handed out new sketches, new ideas, new hallways to be built or torn down. The result? A maze of endless confusion. Staircases that climbed straight into ceilings. Doors that opened to sudden drops. Windows overlooking other rooms. Corridors looping back into themselves. It was as if the house was alive, shifting and expanding, responding to her fears. Neighbors whispered that she was possessed. Servants claimed to hear hammering and sawing even when the workers were gone. Some said Sarah spoke to ghosts each night at midnight in her séance room, where she received building instructions from the spirits. The sounds of footsteps, soft crying, and distant knocking echoed through the mansion's 160 rooms long after midnight. But Sarah was not crazy, at least not in her own mind. She believed she was keeping herself safe, trapped in an endless ritual of construction to satisfy the spirits who demanded it. For 38 years, she built and rebuilt, never stopping, never resting. When an earthquake struck in 1906, part of the house collapsed, including the front section where Sarah often slept. She was trapped for several hours under the debris, but survived. Afterward, she sealed off that entire section, leaving it frozen in time, a scar in the mansion that remains to this day. Visitors today still feel something different in that part of the house. A heaviness, cold air that seems to move on its own. Some say you can still hear her muffled screams beneath the broken timbers when the wind howls through the gaps. Sarah continued to build until the day she died in 1922. The workers stopped instantly, as if the house itself had finally exhaled. The construction ended, leaving behind 24,000 square feet of twisting madness. No two rooms alike. Endless passages. A grand labyrinth of paranoia and sorrow. Even today, people who walk its halls report seeing flickering lights, cold touches, and shadows that vanish when approached. The spirit of Sarah Winchester herself is said to wander through the séance room at midnight, calling out the names of lost souls. But what was she really afraid of? The ghosts, or her own guilt? Years passed, but the house never knew silence. After Sarah Winchester's death in 1922, the endless hammering finally stopped, yet the air within those walls seemed to hum with the weight of everything that had happened there. Locals whispered that her spirit still lingered, unwilling to leave the maze she had built for the restless dead. The construction workers who returned to finish repairs after her death swore they could still hear footsteps on the upper floors, even when the house was empty. Doors slammed shut without wind, and tools vanished only to reappear in impossible places. Today, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a tourist attraction, but few dare to explore it after dark. Guides tell stories of the cold spots that appear without warning, of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders, and the faint echo of hammers striking wood somewhere deep in the walls. Even electricians claim that the lights flicker in patterns, as if unseen forces are trying to communicate. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain, and visitors often describe feeling as though they're being watched from the shadows. One night, a caretaker named Miguel stayed behind to lock up after the last tour. The mansion was silent except for the creak of old wood under his boots. He moved through the narrow corridors, switching off lights one by one. As he entered the séance room, he noticed a candle still burning on the small round table, a candle he was sure had been blown out hours earlier. The flame flickered strangely, as though reacting to his breath. He reached to snuff it out, but before he could, a sudden chill swept through the room, and he heard the unmistakable sound of a woman whispering just behind him. Her voice was faint but clear. "Keep building." Miguel froze. When he turned, no one was there. The air was still, but the candlelight danced wildly, stretching long shadows across the walls. He dropped his keys and ran. The next morning, he quit without explanation. That room remains locked most nights, though some say that if you stand outside its door and listen carefully, you can still hear soft tapping, as if someone is drawing up plans on invisible paper. Visitors have reported seeing strange figures moving behind windows in empty rooms. A woman in black is often spotted gliding along the upper balcony, her face hidden behind a dark veil. Paranormal investigators have captured thermal images showing cold outlines that resemble human forms. One group claimed they heard an old piano playing by itself in a sealed room. When they broke the lock and entered, the piano stood silent, covered in dust, but a single key was pressed down. Others say Sarah's ghost still roams the halls at night, searching endlessly for the spirits she once tried to appease. It's said that every midnight, her shadow passes by the grand staircase, pausing just for a moment before fading into the wall, the same wall that hides a staircase leading nowhere. Sometimes, guides find fresh handprints on the banisters in the morning, though the house is secured and no one lives there. But the house doesn't just haunt those who visit. Many who have worked their claim to take its energy home with them. A former tour guide recounted that after months on the job, she began to dream of narrow hallways and hidden rooms that didn't exist on any blueprint. In her dreams, she followed faint footsteps leading her deeper into the house, but no matter how far she went, she could never find the exit. When she finally woke, she said she could still hear hammering in her ears, as if the ghosts were continuing their eternal work somewhere inside her mind. Even skeptics admit that there is something unsettling about the place. The architecture itself defies logic. Staircases that stop at the ceiling, doors that open into nothingness, windows that look into other rooms instead of outside. It's as if the house itself is alive, reshaping itself in endless confusion, a labyrinth built not for the living, but for the lost. Some paranormal experts believe Sarah's obsession was more than grief. They think she was cursed with a connection to the spirits her husband's rifles had slain. Each nail, each wall, each new room was an offering, an attempt to confuse or comfort the ghosts that hunted her. One chilling theory claims that Sarah succeeded, that by building endlessly, she trapped the spirits inside the house. The ghosts, unable to find peace or escape, remain there forever. When the hammer stopped after her death, the spirits grew restless once again. Visitors have recorded unexplained knocks, whispers, and sudden bursts of cold air when speaking Sarah's name aloud. Locals say that the mansion hums at night, a low vibration like distant thunder, even when the skies are clear. They say if you place your hand against the walls, you can feel it pulsing faintly, like the heartbeat of something still alive. There's a legend that on certain nights, the house reawakens. Lights flicker on in rooms long abandoned, and ghostly figures can be seen moving through the upper windows. Some even claim that the construction starts again, phantom hammering echoing faintly through the valley, as though the spirits have resumed their endless task. Those who have heard it never forget the sound. To this day, paranormal researchers visit the Winchester Mystery House, hoping to uncover the truth. Some leave with proof, eerie EVPs, temperature drops, and unexplained sounds. Others leave shaken, their equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, their minds filled with whispers they can't explain. But all agree on one thing: the house is alive. It feeds on energy, memory, and fear. When the last light goes out and the doors lock behind the final visitor, the house returns to its slumber. Yet deep inside, beneath layers of wood and time, the spirits continue their work, building, moving, watching. The story of Sarah Winchester didn't end with her death. It lives on in every wall she raised and every ghost she tried to silence. The hammers may have stopped a century ago, but in the heart of California, a strange mansion still breathes, waiting patiently for the next soul to wander in and never truly leave.